But let's talk about what's going on in America. Because Donald Trump has been granted some reprieve today as an appeals court drastically cut the $454 million bond he was required to post in his New York civil fraud case on Monday. A 5-judge panel reduced the massive amount to $175 million and gave Trump 10 days to come up with the funds. Let's go right over there now to the US of A and speak to our man, Fox News contributor, Joe Concha. Joe, very good evening to you. Welcome back to the Independent Republic.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
Yeah, good. I mean, this was always going to happen, wasn't it? They were always going to water down the amount, which was so ridiculous as to be laughable. But, I mean, 175 million is still a reasonable amount of money. I presume that, at this point, he will find it.
Imagine living in a world where you are told you only have to pay $175 million of a fine, and that's considered a good day, right? So it just shows you how egregious this original number was, completely arbitrary, out of thin air, nearly 500 million people. And this whole case has been an absolute crock, Mike. I mean, the judge in this case believes that Mar-a-Lago, for example, one of the most opulent, famous properties in the world, the second largest mansion in the state of Florida, 126 rooms, plus property on the ocean, Palm Beach, is only worth $18 million, and Donald Trump inflated its value. I mean, real estate agents in the area say that property would easily go for $400 million. So this original fine, completely out of context. How did they expect Trump to come up with $500 million in 30 days? This is clearly election interference, meant to hurt the odds-on favorite to win the presidency. And once again, Donald Trump, he's probably going to be able to pay this. He says he will. And this looks horrible for Letitia James, the Attorney General that brought this about, because it looks so political.
Well, it does, because in almost any other case, whether it was you, me, Donald Trump, whoever it was, when you're up in front of a civil judge and you're supposed to make a penalty payment of any kind, even if you're up against a criminal judge, you're always given time to pay it. The idea that they're going to go, you know, if you haven't got this money in 10 days, we're going to lock you up on Rikers Island and you'll never see, you know, the daylight again. It's just nonsense. It's just pandering, isn't it, to the Democrats? It's just making out that they can control a man who they clearly cannot control.
Precisely. Because, Mike, look at it this way. Trump is going to appeal this case, and he was told, nope, you got to pay this even before the appeal is heard. And many legal experts here in the U.S. say that if this does get to an appeals court, a sane and sober one anyway, then this will likely be overturned or drastically reduced, because this is basically a murder case without a body, right? No banks said that they were frauded. There were no victims. And the fact that this fine was reduced by $300 million just shows you how ridiculous it is. But beyond Trump, let me give you a big picture consequence of all of this, as far as businesses fleeing New York because they see what the Attorney General is doing to somebody like Trump, which should scare any company, any real estate company, any company for that matter. Did you know that 160 Wall Street firms have moved out of New York in the past 5 years? 160. That's $1 trillion in assets with them. And Alvin Bragg, Letitia James, that's the district attorney general, they're concentrating on these endeavors. Meanwhile, it's scary to take the subway now. You have subway murders are surging. Crime is up 50% in New York City transit hubs. That should be the priorities for the Attorney General, the Manhattan District Attorney. But instead, it's these political hit jobs, the weaponization of the justice system. That's where they're getting their marching orders from right now. I mean, it's coming right from the Biden White House.
This is closer to my heart than you know, because I'm coming over to the US actually, you know, later this week, and I'm going to spend some time in New York, in the city. And you know, I used to live there. I used to live on East 30th Street between 2nd and 3rd in Turtle Bay, not Turtle Bay, Kips Bay it was called, and you know, a beautiful part of town. But central Manhattan, I'm told, at night now is quite dangerous. And I'm going to check into a hotel with my kids in Midtown, and I'm thinking, I don't, know whether there's any migrants staying anywhere nearby, or whether the streets are going to be safe at night after dark, or whether I can take them into kind of, you know, anywhere near Times Square or any of the places that I would normally go, you know, if it's that bad.
It's a shame, right? Because I used to live in New York myself, 96, in Columbus, and I was single. I'd go out with my friends. It would be 2 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't even think twice to look behind me, because that was under Giuliani and then eventually Michael Bloomberg. So we had 5 straight terms of, you know, you felt like you were one of the safest places around, and now you think twice about taking the subway. I mean, think about that. So that's where we are at this point, and I hope you're safe when you're here. But be sure to have a mask for your kids. And I don't mean for COVID. I mean, everything smells like weed. It stinks. There's bodies everywhere.
Yeah.
It's not the same city that you lived in. That's
Unbelievable.
certainly for
I mean,
sure.
I predate you slightly, Joe. I was there in the days of David Dinkins, and it was pretty bad then. It was one of the reasons I came back to live in Britain. You know, but anyway, we'll be fine, I'm sure. Let's talk about a little bit of banter that's been going on. Kamala Harris, first of all, roasted after she did something ridiculous. I think we might have a clip, but I'll wait and see whether we do. This was her clapping along to a protest song, and we do have it. Let's have a look.
All right.
Now, you can see her assistant to her right explaining to her as she's clapping there that actually these people are, in fact, demonstrating and clapping and banging drums against you. And it's actually, you know, a demonstration of a protest song. And then she suddenly stops clapping and realises that maybe that's not a very good idea. She keeps trying to kind of make herself relevant. She did it again the other day where she said she's looked at some maps and she's now pretty sure why there should be a ceasefire in Gaza. You know, she's not really helping herself here, is she?
Oh, no. I mean, you just witnessed exhibit, Z, as far as why Kamala Harris is the most unpopular vice president in polling history.
Yeah.
She's more unpopular than Dick Cheney. This is a guy who led us into a war under false pretenses and literally shot a guy in the face. And she's still more unpopular than him. So if you're Joe Biden, the problem is you can't get rid of her because then you're going to alienate some voters of color. But if you keep her, then this is the package that you get. And if I'm Donald Trump, I run on this all day. I say, hey, this is the backup plan in case Joe Biden were to step down or otherwise. That's your president right there. And that should be a scary thought for even Democrats, quite frankly.
And that has got to be Joe Biden's Achilles heel, no matter what, because, you know, he can't guarantee that he's going to be able to run a campaign, never mind get into power and stay there for 4 years. There's no way he can make that promise. But the other thing that was funny today, I thought, was Donald Trump's tweet about how he was going to be at Trump International Golf Club in West Palm Beach to receive an award. Not one, but 2 awards for the Club Championship Trophy and the Senior Club Championship Trophy. He won both of them. I mean, it's a very Trump-esque thing to say. Joe Biden thought he would make a bit of fun with it. And I'm not sure if we've got this tweet, but he goes, "Congratulations, Donald. Quite the accomplishment." You can see the old liberal elite sneering away at this, but ordinary people, golfers, people who quite like Donald Trump, will rather like it, won't they?
Well, of course. I mean, look, can Joe Biden even finish a hole, right? Because he could barely walk at this point. He has to have special sneakers. They have shorter steps just for him to get up to Air Force One. So, yeah, the fact that Donald Trump's 77 years old and he's basically shooting his age, I can tell you as a golfer, that's pretty good. I mean, I shot 81 yesterday, but that was only on the front 9, Mike. It didn't go well for me at all. I used a lot of foot wedges, and it didn't matter.
Excellent. I used to play a lot of golf at the Delaware Gap in the good old days when I was living there, driving across Jersey. But one final one for you, Joe, and it's a developing story because there's a couple of resignations going on in the Israeli cabinet tonight, which may or may not have some kind of knock-on effects to Netanyahu's ability to stay in charge of the government right there. But also, he's now cancelled an Israeli diplomatic trip to Washington, which was due to take place over the next few days because the US today refused to veto the United Nations resolution calling for a Gaza ceasefire. Does this change anything?
Oh, well, I think what's changed as far as the Biden administration and now suddenly Netanyahu is more the enemy than Hamas is the fact that Joe Biden is trailing in the state of Michigan, which has a large Muslim population. Joe Biden had a primary there recently where 100,000 people wrote in uncommitted as opposed to voting for Joe Biden. So if he loses Michigan, he loses the election is the way this is going to go. So that's why now Netanyahu's not coming because he doesn't feel very welcome, quite frankly, by Democrats, U.S. lawmakers. And this ceasefire here only will strengthen Hamas before Israel can finish the job. So I shudder to think what the next couple of months are going to be like.
And, of course, this is the same guy who said that there was a peace deal on the table and he was hopeful that it would be kicking in before the start of Ramadan, which is now over a week ago, isn't it?
Yeah, and he was holding an ice cream cone with Seth Meyers while doing that, just so you
Yes.
could take him completely seriously in these situations.
Yeah,
'cause
absolutely.
grown men get ice cream with other grown men all the time, apparently.
Yeah,
No, they don't.
apparently so. I mean, I loved how people were trying to make out that that was completely normal. He was trying to reach out to a younger audience. What, 4-year-olds? I mean, doesn't he know they can't vote? Absolutely incredible stuff. Joe, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Joe Concha reporting into us there from Fox News on the latest that's going on between the US of A and Israel.